best thing to do is, if you feel they're off, just without forcing it, allow the space. Even if you just sit and say, you know what, you don't have to say anything to me. I'm just going to sit with you. And we're not going to watch telly because that's a distraction. But I'm just going to sit with you. And when you're ready, if you're ready, tell me what's going on. If you're not ready, cool. Here's a notepad. Write it down if you want. Here's my email. Send it to me. I just want you to know that I'm here, and I'm your bouncing pad, and I'm your punch bag, metaphorically, and I'm here to absorb whatever you need to chuck at me, because you know, it's been proven the lack of expression is what deepens depression. That's been proven in clinical trials and things like that. Whatever you want to say, I'm here. And I think that's the best thing we can do. Best thing we can do. And when they're ready, that's when we can seek out therapy or treatment or all these things.
Hello, you're listening to the State of Potentiality podcast. You lost your job.
A sudden death.
Surprise! You're pregnant!
Any of those sound familiar?
It's out of the blue and completely out of your control.
Still, the next move is yours. The State of Potentiality dives down deep, navigating whatever life throws your way.
And using that to come out the other side bigger, better, and stronger. It is what it is.
It is what it is.
What will you make of it?
Today on The State of Potentiality, we'll be hearing Rebecca talk with public speaking master and podcast host Elliot Kay. For the last decade, Elliot has worked with business owners, entrepreneurs, MDs, and investors, helping them stand out when they are public speaking. Today, Rebecca and Elliot dive deep into the topic of depression, and with the clarity that comes from making it out on the other side, Elliot shares his depression journey. My name's Brad Reed, and you're listening to the State of Potentiality podcast. And now, here's Rebecca's conversation with Elliot Kay.
Here we are. Welcome to the State of Potentiality podcast. I'm Rebecca, and today I have with me a wonderful person, Elliot Kay. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, me. Thank you. A wonderful person. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. That's why I was looking behind me going, who's this wonderful person?
It's your 5-year-old.
Yes, she is. She is a wonderful person. In fact, she came home today with a note from school telling us that she's a wonderful person.
Oh,
so she must
good job, Daddy. Good job.
It's all me. It's nothing to do with the mother. It's all me.
On that note, okay, so I met Elliot through this wonderful app called Clubhouse and have taken a masterclass of his and really enjoyed learning about his skills and how to improve my skills as a speaker. But really, what I've loved is that I've gotten little tidbits of Elliot's story all along the way. So whether that's in a room on Clubhouse where he shares just a small thing, or in his masterclass where he shared some struggles with mental health, which I really identify with. So Elliot, you're just so, you know how to draw people in and not give them all the info. And I love that.
Well, you gotta leave something behind, a bit of a cliffhanger. Otherwise, if we give it all away, people are like, thanks, I'm out.
Yep.
You know, but also I think it's sharing what's relevant. And I think you've seen this in our rooms, right? People can go really deep, really quick, and it's not always warranted. So it's kind of knowing how deep to go for the context you're in.
Yep. So so that's obviously a skill that you have to develop. How do you figure that out? How do you read, well, like on Clubhouse where you can't actually see anyone's face, how do you read a room quickly?
I think a lot of it is following the club thread. So you can very quickly see by the mods and also what people are sharing, where the room's going. But equally, you can see by attention span if people are sticking around or not. You know, Clubhouse very quickly gives you feedback. Is this interesting? Yeah, people are sticking around and more people are joining. No, people are disappearing and no one's joining, right? And then you kind of learn how to tailor things. But also as a speaker, and a lot of my training when I worked with one of my mentors was all about being clear and having brevity and having impact And we used to do loads of training on clear, succinct deliveries, no long, it's all very timed, it's all a clock. And I think that's how I developed the skill. But in Clubhouse, you've got to read the room. And the way you do it is by seeing how and where people are going, the depth that people are going in, and how people are responding to that. If someone goes deep quick and no one's got any response to that, then you know that it's not that room's not ready to go that deep or to open up that. Mm-hmm. And you kind of learn to judge it that way.
Well, and what I love about the room with you and Jose has been in a different podcast episode, but is that you guys managed to find a way to keep things light, even when things, when someone is talking about a deep issue or a difficult issue, there's always laughter too. And I would love to meet you guys in person someday.
Yeah,
someday I'll go across the pond.
Energy. I love the energy you bring to the room every time you come in. It'd be great. We will meet in person. It's going to happen, Rebecca.
Yes, it is. It is. So I think that's kind of what I'd love to talk about is a question I get often is, you talk about you've dealt with depression or abuse or different things. And like, if you're depressed, how are you still so happy? Like, it doesn't make sense, right? And for me, it has been what has kept me going is finding those little snippets or those little moments or those little pockets of sunshine in the difficult, right? So how would you say that you have learned to do that?
Well, the good news is the depression, the really dark stuff I've come through, right? So of course I have down days, and in lockdown there's some really tough days, obviously. I think, without sounding like a cliche, a lot of what's kept me going has been purpose. Has been tying myself and giving myself to something beyond. So when I was going through the really dark days and had really strong mental health battles and I was massively depressed, one of my key things is my word is my bond, right? And what I say I'll do, and I'll do on time. That's like one of my core values. And when I was massively depressed, I knew that I would be tempted to withdraw. So I would purposely do is make appointments, because I know that if I'm going to make an appointment, I'm going to let anyone down. And I wouldn't let my depression override that. So even though I'd wake up with these, and I think, you've been there with those voices in my head and that heaviness and that darkness. And when you're kind of going, what is the point, right? And you're kind of hitting those continuous voices, and you've got that continuous screaming voice of worthiness or unworthiness, like yelling you down and nothing's good enough. It's that whole, look, I've got an appointment. I need to get out of bed. I need to brush my teeth. I need to wash. And that was kind of my coping strategy. And so what you probably found is I overbooked myself, but that's because I knew that would keep me going and because if I gave myself any time to wallow, I think I would have gone to a very different path. So for me, it was about that. It was tying myself into doing something beyond. But of course, every day I'd look, my daughter was very young. I look at my daughter's eyes and I was like, I've got to fight this. I've got to win, right? There's no other option, even though my voices were saying else. I'm not crazy, by the way, people. I just had those voices. And anyone that has mental health or suffered depression, you'll know what I mean. Maybe I am crazy, but not that kind of crazy, right? And it was looking in her eyes. And while I was looking in her eyes, feeling unworthy and having some serious self-worth issues, a part of me was like, you've got to beat this. You've got to be an example. And she never knew, obviously. And my wife never knew. Like, so all these months.
Really?
Yeah. It wasn't until I came out of it and I discussed it. She's like, I had no idea that you were going through this. I saw that you were flat. She saw that. She saw at times I was flat and just beat down. And even my accountant at the time was like, Elliot, you're always so upbeat. I've never seen you so deflated. And that was the extent of what people saw.
So why do you think that is? Why were you putting on a show, or was it that the people that you were around were the ones that were keeping you going?
a big part of it is the people I was around was keeping me going, like without a doubt. My clients as well, like the fact that, my business didn't suffer. A lot of people, when they go through depression, their business suffers. I was running a strategic business at the time. I was still running Speaker Express as well. But my core business was strategy stuff. You had a little taste on that, didn't you, on the masterclass? So that didn't suffer, funnily enough, because of that commitment to a purpose. I was committed to something beyond me, and that's part of my purpose. It wasn't a show. I wasn't pretending. I've spoken to my wife about this a lot of time. I didn't know how to express myself. And I don't know if when you've been in there and you've kind of experienced that, it's very hard to articulate the darkness you're experiencing. So even if she was to ask me or someone was to ask me, I couldn't define it. I couldn't go, look, guys, I'm depressed. This is what's going on. Because the body's going, wait a minute, do I tell people I've got these crazy voices, that I'm feeling dark, I'm feeling heavy, that I'm losing this will to live literally day by day? You're not going to say that, right? Because you know that either you're met with, oh, poor you, and that just makes things worse, or you're met with, suck it up, get over it, which you're not quite ready to do. Now, of course, intellectually, that's what you're meant to do. But you and I know there's a very different battle going on. And I'm a very resilient guy. That's not me blowing I am strong. I am very, very strong mentally. So to go through that, again, I'm going, oh my God, am I really weak? Am I this? So I didn't really know how to define, express. I couldn't articulate how we're talking now. I couldn't sit there and go, look, this is what's going on in my life. I couldn't. So even if someone asked me, I wouldn't know what to say. I'm fine. I'm fine. Just spit down. That's it. That's probably would have been my answer. But even my business partner didn't know. She's no longer in the business. They're all shocked. And it wasn't a secret. I wasn't putting a mask. I wasn't pretending. While I was delivering my trainings and doing the strategy stuff, I was doing that. So that I can reel off. So I didn't need to, there was no pretending needed there, right? When I got home, my attention moved to Ariella, my daughter, and whatever time I had with my wife it was almost easy to hide. Because I don't know about you, Rebecca, when you get home, when you come home or once the kids are in bed, you kind of just sit down and whatever's left of the day is eaten up by probably relaxing or doing what you can around the house or watching a bit of Netflix. And it's very easy to blend in so no one can notice. Do you see? And that's how no one knew. It wasn't a secret. I didn't know how to articulate it. I wasn't putting on a show because, again, I wouldn't know what show to put on. If I'm over happy, people would know, right? If I'm sulking, people would know. So it's not that straightforward. It's really a weird thing that as you're in it, it's like this maze, but everywhere you turn isn't the way out. It's just another way, right? And then it's not until you're actually your brain is able to truly see the light, do you see the way out? And that's what people don't understand when they're dealing with someone with depression, I'll very quickly, before I know I'm talking long, I'll quickly tell you this. I went to a meal with this guy post the depression. It's like, you know what? It's just your brain playing tricks on you. There's the light here and your brain can't quite see it and you just need to see the light. I'm like, if only it was that easy, then it wouldn't be a problem. Half the nation would be suffering. It's not that simple. Your brain doesn't see the light. Even if it's not a trick. Your brain isn't functioning in the way that it's meant to be. That really annoyed me. We fell out. Not because of that, because he's an idiot. But there we go. So that's a different matter right now. But that's the kind of idiot he was.
Love it. And one thing we really have promised not to do here on the podcast is give trite answers like that. Right. I mean, and you're actually the first male that we've talked to about depression. So it's a different perspective, which, go Elliot, go Elliot. But I want to go back a little bit because you really defined and explained depression really well. But what was your life like before depression? And could you see it coming? Did you see something happening?
No. Here's what I remember the day, everything. It's like, because it's so sudden, right? It was my 42nd birthday. I know you won't believe it. I look so young. I mean, I haven't shaved today, but I kind of look like I'm 25 normally.
Yes,
but it was, believe it or not, it was my 42nd birthday. And I woke up And I just had this void in my gut, in my head. And, happy birthday, Daddy, and nice cuddles from my wife and presents. And it was a beautiful day. Nothing was wrong. But I just had this emptiness I was carrying around. And then we went for a meal. I remember the pub meal. And again, I'm sitting there. It's like, congratulations, babe. Happy birthday. My wife is, it's like you, super enthusiastic, super loving, super bubbly. And I just went to bed with this emptiness, and I just felt so flat. And it went on for days. I even, at the time, it was on my website. I blogged about it. And I did some stuff. So, as coaches, because, I've trained as a coach. I don't coach anymore. I mean, I coach speakers. So I did some stuff for myself. I did some tapping. I did some NLP. I did some hypnosis. Did some release. Thought I felt better. Blogged about how much I conquered it, how quickly. But it didn't go away. It just didn't go away. 4 months. And it came from nowhere. At the time, I was running a 6-figure business. So, there was cash flow. I had clients. I had a steady stream of people coming in to work with me. I was fairly established. I mean, I was on rock star status, but I wasn't beginner. I was okay. I was doing well. I had a daughter that I was adoring. I was spending every Monday with. We were living life on our term. Things were okay. There's always room to improve, but I certainly wasn't in the guts. And literally, I woke up with it. Bam. Maybe it's a midlife crisis. I don't know. And I missed it. At least some people have midlife crisis. They go buy a Ferrari. Maybe I should have done that. But there we go. I ended up depressed for months.
So you said you tried a lot of different things. And that's one thing that I definitely noticed too, is when people would find out, well, have you tried this? Have you tried that? And people mean well. But what would you have to say to someone that can tell maybe their partner or a friend of theirs is kind of off or has been down, the last 3 or 4 times they've seen them? How can we be better advocates and supports for people that are struggling?
That's such a great question because, again, my wife and I were talking about this, about one of our friends. She's terrible depression, suicidal. So much so that you're so careful what you say around her, because anything you feel could send her off. So even like when she's out of order and you want to call her out on it, be like, can I call her out on it? Could that, that kind of level. It's really hard. I think what you need to do is be absolutely present to that person. And more than anything, open up the space to listen. The best thing you can do is listen. Don't advise. Like you and I know that if you and I had advice when we're depressed, it will just wash off us or make us feel guilty. The other thing is, like, one of the worst things you can say is, oh, just think of your kids. Because you just end up feeling even worse, right? And people mean well. That's not to say it doesn't come from a good place, but that's just terrible because you're feeling crap. You've got really low self-esteem, and then you feel even worse because you're feeling like that and you feel like you're not being a good parent, a good father, a good husband, a good partner, a good friend. Best thing to do is, if you feel they're off, just without forcing it, allow the space. Even if you just sit and say, you know what, you don't have to say anything to me. I'm just going to sit with you. And I'm just going to sit with you. And we're just going to sit. And we're not going to watch telly because that's a distraction. But I'm just going to sit with you. And when you're ready, if you're ready, tell me what's going on. If you're not ready, cool. Here's a notepad. Write it down if you want. Here's my email. Send it to me. I just want you to know that I'm here. And I'm your bouncing pad. And I'm your punch bag, metaphorically. And I'm here to absorb. Whatever you need to chuck at me. Because, it's been proven the lack of expression is what deepens depression. That's been proven in clinical trials and things like that. Whatever you want to say, I'm here. And I think that's the best thing we can do. Best thing we can do. And when they're ready, that's when we can seek out therapy or treatment or all these things.
So did you have that person in your life?
I did, luckily. Again, I remember the day I was on a train to Waterloo in London, because I'm in the UK. And there we go. Not quite Canada, but the UK. Because there's Waterloo in Canada, isn't it?
Yes, it's about
See?
3 hours from where I am. Yeah.
There you go. That's actually 3 hours from where I am. Isn't that crazy?
What?
There you go. You see, Waterloo's different parts of the world.
The State of Potentiality will return after this short message.
Did you know that there's a community of the State of Potentiality listeners? Just search the State of Potentiality on Facebook for tangible tips, inspiration on how you can grow every day. You'll get the opportunity to give us live feedback as well as tell us what you want to listen to next. We'd love to connect with you. All right, let's get back to the episode.
So I was on the train, but I wasn't living where I'm living now. At the time then, it was like, what was it? Like a half an hour journey, and the whole journey I sat there on WhatsApp and I was typing to her like what was going on. I still sometimes go back and look at it, and it's this long thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm unpacking everything that's going on with me. And then in her typical style, she's like, I've been waiting for you. I'm like, what? She's like, I knew this was coming. I'm like, well, if you've been waiting and you knew, why didn't you reach out? She's like, typical Yoda stuff. You had to be ready. And I'm like, oh my God. Anyway, so I reached out to her. She's amazing. It's all very spiritual. It was very different to any treatment I've ever had, or any, whatever you want to call it. And I remember talking to her, and I just said to her, her name's Illa. I said, Illa, I just trust you. I don't care what we do in the sessions. I don't need to understand. I just trust you. Mm-hmm. And you know what, Rebecca, I can't even tell you what we did in the sessions. I don't know what we did. I know we did chanting, and we did calligraphy, and we did a lot of forgiveness. It was really almost, it sounds crazy and surreal and almost fluffy. And it was, but it worked,
Mm-hmm.
And she kept saying, this is your soul. You've worked on your mental side. You worked on your energy. You've worked on this is soul stuff. This is deep stuff. And she's like, I know you don't believe it. I know you think it's woo-woo. I said, listen, I don't care if you think it will work. She's the only person I really trusted to go there with.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked with her for a few months. And then at the end of it, I completely came out of it and just let it go. It was a lot of forgiveness, a lot of, karmic forgiveness, a lot of, let's say, think of a person you've done this to, and then I'd say, all these kind of chants, please forgive me, forgive my ancestors, I ask, and then I'd ask other generations of yours to forgive me. It's a bit crazy, but it worked, right? And we were friends before, obviously we're friends now, and she's always like thinking about you, and and luckily I can probably say that she saved my life.
It's interesting that you mentioned the forgiveness bit, because that has come up for me probably 3 or 4 times in the last week. What is it that I need to deal with?
Right. It's one of those things. I mean, what I do now, if anyone pops into my head that in any way I might have aggrieved, I straight away ask them for forgiveness. It's strange because you end up asking forgiveness from people that you don't feel you should forgive. And I guess that's a big part of it, right? From blocked energy.
Yeah.
So if it's coming up for you, time to look deep.
Time to do some journaling.
And also releasing.
Yes,
right?
yes. And my brother's a pastor, and he's probably going to smirk because I mentioned him. But he had a sermon this last week on forgiveness and the purpose of forgiveness. And as a person of faith, that is a huge part of my story and what I believe in, but also the science behind forgiveness. Right?
Yeah.
I had a situation in my life where there was a person I was incredibly bitter towards. And I think we had both hurt each other very, very much. And we didn't actually mean to, right? It was 2 people in a situation, and there was no communication. There was only hurt. And that weight on me of every time that person came to mind, getting angry, getting frustrated, even hearing their name, that wasn't serving anybody. It certainly wasn't serving me. And I remember being able to let go of that after a lot of work and a lot of boundary setting. So there was the, I need to forgive you, but I also need to not allow this behavior anymore. And I think, honestly, the forgiveness and the boundary setting, that was a big one for me in my recovery, was realizing that it is okay to not allow certain people in your life.
Or let go of people.
Yeah. Like that's
okay.
Absolutely okay. And that is not something that I ever would have thought of. But, my therapist is sitting there telling me, well, like, why do you keep talking to that person?
Right.
I didn't know I couldn't. I didn't know it was an option to go bye.
It always is. Yeah. And it's not until we hit that we realize that. Yeah. I think ultimately a lot of forgiveness is forgiving yourself.
Okay.
So I think ultimately, what's that?
Explain. Go on.
It's forgiving, right? So you're moving something forwards and you're releasing. So ultimately, if you think about all the forgiving, you're really, yes, you've forgiven that person, but you're actually letting go for you. Right? It allows you to move forward. So yeah, it brings closure. So I guess if you're harboring a lot of anger, resentment, if there's a lot of people you feel like you've hurt, there's a part of you that obviously hasn't forgiven yourself. So ultimately, when you're going, please forgive me, you're actually forgiving yourself. You're letting go for you. And that's okay if it allows you to move forwards in life.
I like that. So you've come through this period of depression, and you had, I still find it so interesting how few people knew. And I think of my dad, who has had his struggles too, and we never found out till afterwards. It was like he felt like he just had to keep going, keep running the business, keep the status quo, and then once I'm better, I'll talk about it. And so that's been a huge part of his story, or I guess our family story was always finding out after the fact. But how has that changed you? Because you can't go through something like that and not have it change you. What do you do differently now than you did before?
It's a good question. I think it's given me another level of empathy. I was very empathetic before, but I think it's added a layer to it, a layer of compassion, a layer of patience. I feel maybe beforehand I wasn't as tolerant to people who might not, like, if I knew they're depressed, obviously I was, at the time I was doing a lot of coaching, but it's given me a level of tolerance, a level of compassion, and a level of connectivity and honesty that, hey, look, people might look at me at times, go, you're so strong, you're so powerful, but hey, look, I've gone through this, I'm human. Even Jose goes, I don't know how you do it. You run the business, you're a dad of 2, you're always on the go, got all these things going on. But it's like, hey, I've had my rough patches. I'm not, by no means that's the roughest thing. I think of everything I've been through in life, that stands out because it's definitely one of the darkest places, but I've been through rougher things, if you know what I mean. And I think it's given me another layer of determination to really make even more. Like I was determined before, now I'm even more determined. Because it's not about me, I want my kids to have the opportunities I've never had. And I want them to have, like even growing up, my dad was never present. He was an alcoholic, he drank a lot. My parents got divorced when I was really young. So it's given me that determination to be even more present for them and just be there that bit more. And I'm not perfect, I get distracted. I'm on my phone a lot. So I'm working on that. But when it's pick up, when it's drop off, when it's the important things, I want to be there for them. And coming through that as I can't say the word, has made that even more important for me.
There you go.
And that's what's come from this depression. And I think it's just general compassion to humans, even more. And to
I'm
be the
hearing my-
first on your podcast, the first man to talk about it on your podcast. That's what it's given me.
Well, I so appreciate your willingness to talk about it. For, my journey and talking about postpartum depression, that's become a pretty okay, I guess, topic to talk about. 1 in 4 women experience postpartum depression, but I don't know anyone else that has had depression when she found out she was pregnant. Right? This is a totally different conversation, and so I so appreciate you being willing to have that. We're going to wrap this up here in just a couple of minutes, but I am really curious what you had to say to the person, the man that woke up this morning and just isn't sure why he or she or they should go on.
It's a good question. It's a tough question. What I would say is this: keep going, right? Just keep going. You might not know why or how, but just know at some point, with no pressure, at some point you will find the reason for this. And it will make you a better person. It might take a while, and a while can be weeks, months, but stay in the journey to find out what that is. I can't tell you, I can't promise you, it's very hard, to say anything without knowing you or hearing you or meeting you, but just stay in the journey. And at the end of it, it will transpire why you've been through it. And just hang on to that, because at the end of that lies something else which is different. And I sincerely hope it'll be worthwhile.
I got nothing after that. Thank you, Elliot. That very much definitely came from the heart, and I identify with that. And as someone who has struggled, I really appreciate those words. And I just want to add that you are still needed here. If you woke up today and you don't want to keep going and you're not sure why you should, you have purpose here, and you are of value here, and we need you here. And that's something that I hope every one of our listeners knows and hears often, is that they are of value, and they have a purpose.
Amen.
And they are wanted. I mean, you obviously have the concise thing down, because we're like half an hour here, and I'm like, okay. So why don't you just take a couple of minutes and talk a little bit about why you do. So obviously you and I have connected because of the public speaking, and I've gained a lot from that. Where can people find you?
Okay, great. So I do also have a podcast called Voice for Good. And actually the second season is dedicated to what is confidence. So obviously a lot of the issues that we discussed today do come up in that. So feel free to look up Voice for Good on all good platforms. Obviously there's other things on that as well. But if you focus on season 2, it's very in line with what we talked about. People can get in touch with me, Instagram, stand_out_. So stand_out_academy. That's probably the best one, the most active one. I mean, I know you and me connected on a different one, but I'm really not on that very often. Or Speaker Express on Instagram. And look, if you want to reach out and express yourself to me and just have somewhere to say what you got to say, where there's zero judgment, it certainly won't be shared anywhere whatsoever, feel free to DM me. Do it, go for it. If you want to take it off social media, then I'll happily share an email with you. Feel free to do that, but get me on the gram, Stand Out Academy or Speaker Express, and then I'll gladly support you in any way I can, or just reach out to have a conversation with me.
Thanks for listening to the State of Potentiality podcast, where we share stories of overcoming adversity each episode. If this episode resonated with you, click the follow button and share the story with 3 friends, or give us a review on iTunes. You can now join our Facebook group to get more inside inspiration and practical, tangible tips to help you grow every day. Just search for The State of Potentiality. As always, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook, as well as our website, www.stateofpotentiality.ca. Remember, friends, it is what it is. Make something good.